Chase Boatright. How you doing, sir?
I'm wonderful. How about you?
Oh man, if I was any better, I'd be you.
I don't know about that.
I'm glad that you finally agreed. You got your schedule clear.
I did.
And
I
you're
did.
home.
Yes, sir.
And so I'm excited about you being here. Appreciate you taking the time.
I appreciate being here.
And you got the girls. You're the only man standing there in that house.
I am.
And so how does that feel? They treat you pretty well.
They do. I'm outnumbered.
Right, and that's okay.
Yeah,
that's okay.
Yeah, but I feel good about it. Being a girl dad is the best way.
Did you ever think you'd be a girl dad? Did you?
I didn't really think about it, but how it's panned out, I love my two little girls, and I couldn't imagine it any other way.
Right. Is there plans for a little boy or plans for another? I know y'all are still young.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
The way you travel is kind of
it's difficult.
So, the reason, I guess, which I've always just loved you as you're a lot younger than me, so I watched you kind of grow up and everything like that. And be honest with you, which I don't know anybody's future, but I know we've talked a good bit about the change, and you had your own business, and then you you started leading service, and you just did phenomenal with that.
Oh, thank you.
And I always have I guess our conversation we had just briefly in passing one night was that you've got a way of just being so natural in general, and you kind of expose all your flaws when you're preaching, and I think it really brings people in. When you're so
sure.
I don't know what the word I'm actually looking for. When you're just
sure.
You're very open with the struggles that you have and things like that.
Yeah.
And you said that little quick conversation that sometimes you struggle with being so open in things like
sure.
that. Can you tell me a little bit about? I mean, how is that? Because I think it's a great superpower, and you sometimes look at it as not.
Yeah, because sometimes I feel like I'm too open.
Yeah.
But a lot of people view that as weakness, and so I have too before. But I feel like that, especially from a preacher standpoint, I always looked at preachers as superheroes.
Right.
People that, ate breakfast with Jesus and,
right.
and had tea with angels
right.
and stuff like that. And so I just didn't think that they had any struggles. I just didn't, for whatever reason, I had a misconception of ministry. And, I feel like that, if I would have been aware that they struggle too, then I wouldn't have felt so condemned.
I was just about to ask you that question.
With my struggles.
Yeah. Do you think, did you struggle with that? I mean, obviously you did, because that was my next question.
Not with ministry.
Right.
Not with ministry, but just within myself.
Right. That you thought that was a level that
was unattainable.
Right.
And so, now in the position that I'm in, I don't try to be so transparent with every gory detail of my life, but I do want, because I feel like that if I can do this, anybody can do this. Of course, calling and everybody's purpose is different. Not everybody's called to be an evangelist or right. whatever. But to be honest, I didn't think I was either. So I feel like that if I can achieve where I am, I feel like that if you're called to that, you can too.
Yeah.
And I just, Charlie and I come from such a difficult background. Of course, y'all know more about Charlie's than about mine. And whenever you take two broken people like Charlie and I, and you see, and again, it's not perfect, but you see what God's done, I feel like it gives other people hope.
Yeah.
And so that I love, I love preaching about hope.
Yeah. I guess genuine is the word I was looking for.
Yeah.
Earlier, is that you've always just come across really genuine. From the first time you led service, I'm like, well, God, you got something there, because you wasn't trying to. Not that some do, but you were just really genuine, really open, and
sure.
I just remember that the church just really rallied around and loved you on that.
Yeah.
So there's a country saying that you can't get there from here.
Yeah.
And that's really about basketball. Did you ever see yourself as that? I mean, because it almost was like just something buried in. And this is not a totally religious podcast. It's just me talking with people I find doing interesting things.
Sure.
Did you not know that was there? I mean,
so I knew that I had a calling to preach, but there's people that have a calling to preach that are not, because preaching is sharing the gospel. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And so, I knew that there was a burden there to do something for God, but I never. In fact, Brother Copeland told me just a few months ago. He said, "For somebody who came here and didn't want to be a preacher, you sure have turned out to be a preacher."
Right.
And
Agreed.
So. I did. In fact, whenever the doors started opening for me to preach, I've told Brother Copeland on numerous occasions that I didn't want to do this.
Right.
That I would rather be home, helping build our local church. And that's the truth. That's not false humility. I just never seen myself doing this, and it's a whole lot different than what I ever dreamed my life. I mean, in general, would ever be. So it's been an interesting journey, especially the last few years.
How many?
Well, I've been evangelizing 2 years now. 2 years. I sold my business almost a year ago.
Yeah. Well, I was going to talk to you about that, the transition from, because I know when you started your business, you gave me the opportunity to do the insurance on it.
Sure.
So, I know that obviously building any business is hard, and yours was a fairly hard labor business. I mean, you're striping in the 3,000-degree weather, and then you were washing things and stuff like that. So selling a business to me, like I have an insurance agency and my parents had a business and I know business owners. Selling something like that's hard. I mean, you put your whole life into this, your struggles and your things like that. Was that an easy thing for you and Charlie to come to?
I mean, it really was, to be honest with you, whenever it came apparent to me, because I had the first revival that lasted forever with Brother Morales.
Right.
And then the next door opened with his brother, Brother Nathan Morales and Morton, and then another revival opened up. And so, I was working and preaching all at the same time. And, I talked to Brother Copeland about it, and Brother Copeland suggested that I sell. And around that time, I just lost heart for it. Like I just didn't love it anymore.
Yeah, he just kind of replaced your
yeah. And so, I still help Chanceley a whole lot. I worked on doing quotes and stuff today, and I still work from time to time. But surprisingly, it was very, very easy.
Yeah. A lot of pressure in what you do. I mean, as far as
yeah. A lot more than what I ever thought that it would. I mean, you see the conference rooms where the preachers go in there and close the door, and you kind of wonder what's going on in there, and whenever the preachers get to go eat at Midwinter Summit and then go up to pastor's office, and you wonder, like, what are they talking about?
You know what I love? I love watching them. Like when the song service is going on, you'll see them pair up.
Yeah,
It'll be two pastors or a band or whatever, or they're all kind of whispering.
Yeah.
Like
what are they talking about?
Yeah, what are y'all talking about?
Yeah.
Like, we're worshiping here, man. What's the deal? Come on. So that's the thing. I guess pressures, and you answered that correctly. But as far as with internal, I know internally with other peers and things like that.
Yeah.
Do you face a lot of pressure? I know just from the outside looking in on anything, there's always probably a little bit of alpha syndrome, maybe hierarchy, things like that. Y'all probably wail on each other a good bit. Probably, screenshot each other's sermons and things like that. You've got a good group of peers, obviously the ones that from our church. Do y'all jump on each other pretty hard on stuff like that?
Really we don't. We've got a really great group of guys, and so really, there's not a whole lot of all that. I mean, the guys that are still at home church are very supportive, and then also the fellow ministry that's out from under our church, that are pastoring a church or evangelizing. It's really a great support system. It really, really is. And I've never really felt any animosity or anything but unity and really,
you never really wanted this.
No, I did
not. And I have a
not.
tendency to believe that the things you don't, someone said one time, the things you don't want, come get you.
Yeah.
And I've been not wanting $1 million for a long time.
Right. Yeah. Me too. Me too.
Yeah. Just come get me.
Even 300,000. I don't want that.
Hey, I'll take 300,000. But I guess that's why to me on the outside, it just seemed to come so natural and so quick for you, and the changes happen so quick. All of a sudden, boom, you're selling a business. Thank for y'all are still here. You haven't decided to move
no,
off
we're
or
not.
anything
No,
like that.
No.
Brother Brister did that. He kind of traveled the way y'all are traveling for a while. Then he moved 38 hours away. You just never do know what could happen on that.
You never do know what can happen about that.
What is something like I sent some questions to you like that, and what is some of the I guess. Because you are so transparent with things.
Sure.
I asked you about some challenges you may have faced the last couple of years or maybe this year, or something you've learned this year.
Yeah.
Something that maybe approached your, that come to you or whatever. Like, man, this is really going to be hard to deal with or something like that. Is there anything that you could talk about on the podcast about that? Maybe how you overcame some things. You ain't got to be specific on maybe some of the things, but maybe a challenge that come your way.
I think one of the biggest things, whenever it has to do with evangelizing, so that aspect is every congregation is different.
Okay.
Every church, every pastor, every body of people, they're at different levels and different seasons, and so I've learned that you can't go in and deal with every church the same way. You can't preach the same church the same way.
Yeah.
You can't preach the same message the same way. Because if you deal with a certain group of people that are not in the same season that we're in, it's just not going to go over very well. The biggest obstacle I think through all this that I've dealt with and overcome was leaving my wife and kids at home.
Yeah.
My dad was gone a lot. He worked on an oil rig, still does. And so, he'd be gone 2 weeks and then home 2 weeks. And the time that he was home, he was fishing or doing something that he wanted to. And he was never around. And that was just something that I never did want as a father. And so it truly is heartbreaking to not be in service with my little girls. And like Tuesday night, Charlie told me that Iva was right there at receiving the Holy Ghost. Stuff like that it brings me joy, but it's heartbreaking at the same exact time. It's bittersweet because I want to be there. I want to be there with my family.
How do you balance that, or how do you how do you overcome? Obviously you're doing what the Lord wants you to do.
Yeah.
Is that solace enough to know that, hey, I'm doing this, and my kids and wife are in a safe place while I'm out doing this?
Yeah. So there's that aspect, and then whenever I'm home, I don't run around with friends or anything like that. Like if I don't go to a lot of conferences, or a lot of the guys they go summertime there's a conference every night of the week. I stay home. I stay home and balance. Now, if I'm preaching Revival Close and I'm not having to stay over Monday and Tuesday, then it's okay, But if I'm gone, like I was at Brother Brister's for 2 months this year, in this summer,
that's a hard. You can't come home every night.
No, and so I left on Saturday and I stayed gone, and I got home early Wednesday morning, and so I only had a couple of days really home, so I didn't do a whole lot then. But like now I'm home except on Sundays and Tuesdays, and if I need to go do something on Friday or something like that, I'll take advantage of that and do whatever I need to do. But I make sure that while I'm home, my family is priority.
When I first got into church and evangelists coming through, I never thought they had a home anywhere.
Yeah,
I was I was in my late 20s. I never knew this type of thing existed.
Sure.
So when someone would come through, I'm like, God, they live in that travel trailer. They go home and they stay with their mom, something like that.
Yeah.
But that has changed now, and you see a lot more home-based evangelists, you know,
Yes.
and I guess with the availability of to be able to drive and to do things like that, it's a lot more convenient than say it would have been like 20, 25 years ago. Where you leave home with a truck and a trailer and you're gone for months, and then you come back. So so it really does fit your lifestyle. Obviously, you're out there doing what you need to do. So,
yes, sir.
So tell me about about how Sister Charlie supports you while you're gone. I mean, you get in contact with her a lot? I know she takes care of everything at the house. I mean, how is that? You got to have a good support system while you're out.
Yeah, I mean, we stay in contact while I'm gone. You know, I talk to the kids as much as possible, and we just make sure that we maintain we just offset the biggest deal is offsetting that time that I'm home, being together. But she's extremely supportive. Again, it's not something that's just necessarily desired, but it's something that we feel like is necessary. And
does she go with you? Does she travel with you?
Some, you know, like Brother Brewster's, she went. We stayed down there for a whole month, and neither one of us came home. And so we enjoyed that. You know, that was fun. But I think it's very, very important for my kids to be here.
Right.
That is the biggest deal. I think that we've got a great thing going, and we got a great Sunday school department. I trust everybody in Sunday school. This is a safe place, and so I prefer my kids to be here. You know,
turning points are always a big thing. You know, as far as obviously the last couple of years I've watched turning points in your life. You know, you move churches, you come, you know, to Pine Grove. You know, I'm sure that was a huge move. You know, and then starting a business. I know you did so much with business. I know you started out painting.
I did.
You know, and you told me one time, it's a funny story. You wasn't really a painter. You just told somebody that you could do it. You know. That to me is and I've always just admired that, because this little fence. I built me a little 20-foot fence over here the other day, and it took me basically 50 years to get the courage to build, because I'm not a builder. You know.
Right. And
so people that they take the curveball, they step into it, and they do it, always intrigues me. I mean, I watch YouTube channels about this fence for 2 months before I went and bought it. And then I bought all the products in pieces. I went to the hardware store. I'm like, well, just give me the post today.
Sure.
And like, you don't want to get the rest. No, just give me the post. So I step by step did things, you know, like that. That's really, do you ever think about that? I mean, as far as the way because what were you doing before you started construction painting type things? What were you doing? Have you always done construction up until the time?
Yeah, some form of construction.
Yeah.
I actually worked for John Beeson at one time.
Did you really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, he had a painting business again, kind of like he's doing now, and I worked for him, and then that kind of dissolved. He got in a bad car accident.
Yeah.
And so that naturally dissolved, and I went to work at the co-op, sweeping floors loading up feed at the co-op, and then I moved here, and Brother Copeland, suggested that I go start a business. He said, "What do you know how to do?" I said, "I know how to paint."
Yeah.
And he said, "Well, start you a painting business." And so I did. That's what I started doing, and it just evolved into the pressure washing and that type of stuff like that, and God really blessed it. I was extremely thankful.
Yeah. Then the line striped, and then you just said we're going to preach.
Yep.
We're just going to do all that and just put all that behind us.
Yep.
When you think about where the Lord's brought you from, and I don't know all your, like I said, I know Sister Charlie when she was just a baby, you know, so we were very familiar with her family and some of the things that went on there, and praise God, you know, the work she's doing now and things like that. So, do you remember a lot of? Do you think about where you're at now to compare to where you could have been, or where?
Oh yeah,
yeah, you know.
Yeah, I was born in southern Colorado.
I did not know that.
Yeah,
okay.
And my mom passed away in a tragic car accident whenever I was 3. Her and my dad were split up, and she was traveling to Oklahoma to get me and my sister. And so as a result, we moved back to Colorado for a short period of time, brief period of time, and my dad decided to move to Philadelphia, where my dad's dad was, my grandfather. Weird enough, there's no truth preaching church where I was born.
Really?
None. And I moved to Philadelphia, Mississippi, to a home where my grandfather had married a Pentecostal lady. And so my dad went to work on an oil rig, and so my grandmother took me to church. And, that lasted for a few years.
Yeah.
And then my dad got married, and we kind of departed from that. And then, I was a rowdy troublemaker of a teenager, and all of it just kind of come to a head, and I had to make a decision whether I wanted to, still partake of all those terrible endeavors, or if I wanted to get right. My stepmama had went to church and got the Holy Ghost. My sister went to church and got the Holy Ghost. And my dad, even though he never has, he instructed me to go get the Holy Ghost.
Yeah.
He's seen the path that my life was taking.
Yeah.
And so I went.
Yeah.
I figured that if my lost daddy could see what a mess my life was in, that I was in trouble.
Yeah.
And so I went and I got the Holy Ghost. And I was about 16, 17, somewhere in there. And I was far from perfect, but I got in church and I tried my best to live for God. And so that lasted from 17 until 20 or 21, and then I moved. I moved my letter to Sebastopol.
Yeah, moved your letter to Sebastopol, married Charlie, and the rest is making history.
Yeah.
I did not know that about your mother.
Yeah,
Didn't know that about that.
Yeah.
So that's not. I guess your sister must have been just.
She was just about a year old.
I was about to say she was just not even. Yeah. Wow. Didn't know that. I didn't know that. That is that's tough. That's tough. And obviously I hate to say it worked to bring y'all back to the house, but that's tragic that we've been hearing a lot of that preaching about the tragedy of things that it's obviously a tragedy, but it works for good in the very end, for the good. And that's kind of hard to.
Yeah.
Life's hard.
Yeah.
Life's very hard. You and your dad talk? Do y'all talk?
Sadly, we're not that close.
Yeah.
We have a cordial relationship, but just the differences in lifestyle have put such a strain on the relationship that like I said, we keep in contact, but we are not very close.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
Yeah.
So,
if you could give yourself, say, if you went back to that 17, 18-year-old kid, if you could talk to that version of Chase, what would you now? How are you now?
I'm 30.
30. Wow.
30.
Okay. So yeah, you're still young.
Yeah.
But if you could go back 15 years, if you could travel back in time and talk to that kid, what would you say if you could give him some advice?
I would say, don't be hard.
Okay.
Life just has a way of making you hard.
Yeah.
And, I feel like that God has been involved in every piece of my life.
Yeah.
No matter how hard or tragic or questionable it may have been. Whenever I was, even up until the last few years, I've been a extremely hard individual.
Okay.
It's kind of weird. So I went back to Colorado this last November.
Okay.
The truck that I got, my grandpa bought brand new in 1989. And, he's kind of wanting to disperse some of his stuff. He's 83. He's 80. He's 80. He'll be 81 this year. And he's kind of wanting to disperse some of his stuff before he passes. And so he wanted me to come out there and get that old truck and get a few things. And so I went and visited him. We used to spend every summer out there growing up as kids. And so really my grandfather is more like my dad. Okay. And again, he's not in church or anything like that. We talk every week, sometimes 2 times a week. He's more like my dad than he is anything else. And I can't explain what happened to me this last November whenever I went out there. But it was like old wounds opened up. Whenever I stepped back into Colorado, it was as, I don't know how to say this because I didn't plan on saying any of this. It was as if my mother had just passed away.
Yeah.
And that was
7 years
20 or 28 years ago. You know, that was a long time ago. And there was something inside of me that had not healed from that. And you know, life just made me hard.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it's just the process of time that softens you. I don't know if there was I don't think that there was a way that I could have been softer. But if I wish somebody could have told me, don't let this stuff make you hard.
Yeah.
You know, because at every juncture in life, whenever I changed churches, I thought the church was going to make me something better. And whenever I got married, I thought that was going to make me better. And I thought whenever I had kids, that was whenever I had we always think if this could change, if I could have more money, if I could change careers, if I could just move somewhere else, if I can just change something, then my life will be magically better. And we don't realize that a lot of the time it's internal.
Yeah.
Some changing externally is not going to help your internal. And I didn't realize that. But don't be hard.
Yeah.
Don't let life make you hard.
Yeah, it's hard enough. And dealing with, when I was lucky enough to have my parents, my dad, I think he passed away when I was 48, which I was lucky to have him for that length of time. And then Mom passed away, and I was probably, it was like a year or two later. Yeah. So I lost them both real close together.
Sure.
And no matter how old you get, you always kind of feel like an orphan when that happens, But the older I get, the realize that I probably judged my parents more than I should have. You grow up and you're a teenager,
sure, and
they don't know anything. And then you're trying to raise a family, and they're trying to butt into that, and then you realize, so you really don't I don't think can appreciate. I don't know. Somebody said one time about an artist, like we've all heard of Da Vinci, Leonardo da Vinci, and we've all heard of who's the one that cut his ear off, Starry Night. I should know him. Anyway, all these famous artists that we hold so dear, most of them died penniless, and they died broke because no one appreciates the artist during their time.
It's the truth.
They just don't. I mean, I don't care who it is. I've got art hanging up in here, some that I've done that only I can appreciate, but some of the other stuff like that. But, they never appreciate the art until the artist is gone.
Sure.
And so I guess that's what when you talked about your dad and maybe some feelings that, about with your mom and things like that, your dad's still, available,
right.
And if I could give you any advice, which is, this is your interview, I'm not trying to, I come to hear you talk, but, maybe there's a place for you and your dad to
100%.
Because he's still there.
Absolutely.
And that may be something you need to, because once they're gone, you can't ever do that.
Yep.
So it seems like the Colorado trip is something that you had to overcome. I mean, what did you?
It was a whole deal. It was a process, because it was as if I just buried my mom. That's what it felt like. And so it was just figuring out where all of. Sister Copeland recommended a book. I went and got one of those scans done, and to tell me how I feel, and so she recommended a book titled "Feelings Alive Never Die," and essentially the feelings that I felt as a 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 year old still lived on the inside of me, and they came out. And so you just got to recognize that you got to, deal with that stuff that's buried on the inside of you. It talks about how illnesses and cancers and all that type of stuff derive from emotional stuff, anger, grief, bitterness. And so you got to go and you got to deal with that.
So how would, if someone's listening to this podcast and says, well, I'm dealing with that type of stuff, and I don't have a PhD shingle or anything like that. I don't either. What would you say to them? What would you say? Like, I've got a lot of things that happened to me that wasn't my fault. Maybe I was abused or something like that. I faced a lot of anger and bitterness. Without the checklist to see. I mean, just right off the bat, what would you say to someone? Because I know you run into that when you're preaching. When you run into things like that, what's your advice? I mean, obviously, it's easy to say, well, just pray more or just whatever. But what's your advice to someone that's really dealing with what you were dealing with, the Colorado? What would you say to someone if they come up to you and they said, man, I've got. If someone come up to you and said exactly what, man, all this just blew back up on me and I thought it was over with. What would you say to them?
I think that, examining where you're at, you're figuring out, what causes that, what triggers you, because there's sometimes that, anger can arise if you feel rejected.
Right.
And so, you realize, okay, I only get this angry whenever I'm rejected. Where did rejection start? Was it with my parents? Was it where, did I tell somebody something and they rejected me? And now every time I feel rejected, not necessarily that they reject me, but I feel rejected.
Right.
I don't want anything to do. I'm embarrassed. I'm angry. So you got to identify that stuff and go back to what you make and identify as the root cause. But, that's how I started. I'm not really a professional in any of this, but I think most of us know where this stuff derives from. We've lived long enough to identify where this stuff started, whether we had to cover up a tragedy in our life or an abuse or something like that. And I think, I think forgiveness is the absolute biggest proponent. And forgiveness does not mean that it never pops back up in your mind.
Yeah.
I think forgiveness is a process of every time it pops in your mind or you relive a moment or you relive a feeling that you process that forgiveness again and then you release it. Releasing is whenever healing comes into play. Because whenever you forgive, just like whenever Stephen was stoned, he said, God, I don't want you to lay any charge at them. I want you to wipe their slate clean. Whenever they get to judgment, I want you to have forgiven them because I release them. And it's that same type of prayer. Maybe it's an abuser and you say, God, don't hold that to their record, what they did to me. When I feel like whenever you can pray prayers like that, you have released what is happening and healing can begin. It's not instantaneous, but it does begin.
Yeah. I have a theory, and I don't know if it's anything. I'll get your ideas on it. I think most of our problems these days, and I could be wrong, but I think most of our problems is that we're in too big of a hurry.
Yeah.
I don't think we have time. I don't think we take the time to really process anything much these days.
Sure.
That calendar I hung on the wall, I bought that at Christmas time of last year. I said, I'm going to mark every day that's not available. And by the time I got through marking the church schedule, the prayer meeting, not a lot of times, I have marked off a day on that calendar every day this year. And the year is gone. I'm talking about we're in the last quarter of it. And I think a lot of times with everything you just said, if I find a place to pray and forgiveness and things like that, I think we're just way too busy.
Yeah.
And I think if we could just find a place to slow down.
Sure.
And process these things. I don't think, like, I know our forefathers faced tremendous tragedy stuff.
Sure.
They fought through wars and famine and, the Great Depression and you go to any graveyard, and see stones from, 80 years ago. There's kids buried,
Sure.
families like that, and I know they had grief and they had things like that, but I think the main thing is they had time. They had more time to process. Our time, and I know they had the exact 24 hours in the day
Sure.
that we did, but I don't think we, as this generation or the generations alive now, I don't think we process our time
Sure.
well. And I think if we take time,
Yeah.
and that leads me to another thing on that. It's like, you talked about spending time with your family and doing all that, but what about when they're, where do you find time to process what you're going through? I mean, as a young father and husband,
Sure.
and your travels like that, any advice on finding time? Because to me, at 53, time is still very short. I mean,
Sure.
it's like it's hard to find time.
Sure.
Do you struggle with finding time? Just for self-help, self-preservation?
I thought that, there would be just so much time. But the truth is that, especially in my schedule now, because most of my work is at night, if you want to be busy, you can be busy. And if you want to make time, I can make time. For me, because my kids and my wife are all at the school all day long. And so I could use the excuse to sleep late if I wanted to because I stayed out late preaching and driving in. Or I can just get up and read and study and pray. And so, as of late, that's what I've made myself stay at home. I've got a lot of friends, and I could be on the phone all the time, but I choose to refrain from that. And I spend a lot of time reading now, a lot of time studying because I didn't for all those years running a business. And so I'm not like Brother Brister or some of these others that just had so much scripture in them. I didn't have that. So, I feel like I'm a little behind the 8 ball and I got to catch up. And then the first year of evangelizing, I worked full time and evangelized. So now I have more time on my hands to where I can study and stuff like that. And so to the best of my ability, I try my best to utilize that wisely.
Yeah. And I know that everybody has some form of social media. You, I think, had one for your business like that. You're not very active on social media.
Yeah.
What's your takes on that? Because I absolutely, I stay on it. And I feel like that's kind of my ministry is to start trouble every day on Instagram.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is, like, do you have any thoughts on social media and the let's just say social media in the church? I think is a good thing. Have you
Sure.
seen it? How have you seen that being used for good?
I feel like it reaches people. There's a lot of people that have come into our church from the live stream and from media, and so everything else is being publicized and put out there through pictures and publishing. And so I have no problem with that whatsoever. I feel like that it's right and that we need to do it. And as far as my media use, I had mine mainly for, I love Marketplace, right. And I think every man does, and
yeah.
and woman.
Yeah.
My wife, if I'd let her, she'd be sending me to go get tables and chairs, and we'd be swapping things out every couple of days if I felt the need to do that, but I don't. And now, I'll look on there occasionally. I have recently taken all of that off my phone, and I've got it on my iPad. I don't have YouTube on my phone. I don't have anything on. I've got it all on my iPad. So if it's a little inconvenient to carry your iPad around looking at Facebook. Yeah. So I'll get on there and look at notifications or anything like that. And then of course I watch our church services religiously. And then if there's any brethren, that are preaching any of our guys that I watch from time to time, I'll tune into what they're doing somewhere else on as far as YouTube is concerned. And then you always use that for educational purposes.
Sure. Yeah.
So,
and then I found out that the last couple of years, I have to be very intentional in what I do. I write down tons of things. I got notebook after notebook after notebook. Anything that I try to do, I try to be very intentional with.
Sure.
But it seems like every Sunday when I wake up and I get that time notification that this is how much time I spend. And a lot of time that's just phone usage, because I do use
100%.
We do use our phone for businesses and stuff
Sure.
like that, and so it's hard to track down exactly what you did. A couple of years ago, Holly put me on a well, I kind of put myself on this an hour a day. All my social medias I could only, whether I had Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, whatever, I could only do an hour combined.
Oh, wow.
So that was a big thing.
Right.
And I don't have the code to it, so I can't override it.
Right.
But Jackson, Riley, and Holly will. Now, Holly's never really very, she doesn't let me.
Right.
If I'm out of time, can I post this? No, you can't do that.
Yeah.
Jackson will and Riley will put the code. So if I want to do something, check something, whatever. So, but being intentional on stuff
sure.
is something I'm having to do, like just with the time and things I keep up with days. And I write stuff. I'm more of a writer. I like to write things down. The digital
sure.
stuff doesn't. Do you like that? Do you put pen and paper and stuff?
No, I keep notes in my phone,
okay.
and so notes on my phone and iPad. I'm not a pen and paper person. Yeah. I wish I kind of would be for my kids' sake later on down the road. But as of now, I'm not a pen and paper person at all.
I've left a pretty big carbon footprint everywhere with everything. I mean, I got paper, and of course I got closets full of stuff. I keep everything I possibly can, so I'm kind of a pack rat on stuff like that. And then trying to produce enough media out there. I don't have one video of me and my dad.
Wow.
In the digital world, I don't have one video of him.
Wow.
Not one. And that's a shame.
Yeah.
I don't. Now, my mom, before she passed away, her Facebook page is still up, and she would, my mother was a phenomenal nurse.
Yeah.
Phenomenal nurse. Good businesswoman, but she really couldn't sing that great. So Mama would sing on Facebook. And it was just, oh, my God. Which I'm not a great singer, but Mama just was not a great singer. And
I love it.
It would kind of embarrass me.
Yeah.
But I'm so glad that
sure.
she did. So now I can pull it up. And when she hits those notes that's not there, it's something I need to really download all that type of stuff.
Yeah.
So, are you a sentimental person? Do you keep things?
I am about. I am. Every time Iva or Catherine comes in, I've got a drawer that's just full of drawings and little notes and my grandfather was a police officer. He was a chief.
I didn't know that.
He was a chief of police, and so. I've got badges that he had and his first gun that he ever carried. He carried a .38 special, and I've got that. Yeah. And, his truck and just stuff that, meant a lot to me as a young kid.
Yeah.
I've got those things. I'm not sentimental about everything. Like school, I'm not going to keep every school paper and stuff like that. But I've probably got more in that drawer than I've got birthday cards. They used to send me birthday cards every year, and my grandfather still does. I'm 30 years old, and he's still going to send me a birthday card with a check with $50 in it. And so I've got nearly every one of them from the time I was probably 7 until now.
Yeah.
And so stuff like that, stuff like that, I am,
Yeah, my dad was never real sentimental stuff. He'd buy me stuff. He didn't keep anything of his own pretty much, And so the few things that I have, I'm pretty proud. But I've just sometimes I wonder about all this junk that I got. I call great looking stuff that Holly don't seem to find the beauty in me buying comics and art and stuff like that, or just keeping all this stuff. But I think it's important that we never forget those. I don't know. I feel it's important that we remember.
Sure.
People.
Yeah.
I don't want to be forgotten.
Sure.
And I think, within a generation or two, no one remembers you, unless you're just, there's going to rise a generation that will never remember Elvis. We still haven't got that way, but, by the time my generation's over with, nobody will remember who he is, and I just find it a tragedy when people forget things. So I really love to keep things, to be reminded
100%
of that, and I've got a lot of favorite things I do. When you look back and remember your life, this kind of cliche, but maybe not. what would you like people to think of Chase in 50 years when Chase is 80 years old or 90 years old and you're winding down? You know, I guess maybe to wrap the podcast up, because we're almost at an hour. If someone were to say, Chase, what's the meaning of a good life? If you want to establish a good life and you want to be remembered, what would you say? What do you think the essence of having a good life or leaving a good life behind would be?
You know, I think everybody has an idea of what somebody's life is. You know, they think they know who that person is. Yeah. And there are times that people are not who they profess they really are. And I would just, you know, it's your kids and your wife who know who you really are. It's not the outside world. And I would like people to know that I was who I said I was.
Yeah.
The man that they seen preaching or whatever was the man that was behind closed doors. Yeah. I want to be who I say I am. I don't want to be something that I'm not. Does that make sense?
Yeah. In guarding your private life, in your private world, is probably the most important thing for that to be established.
Sure.
You know, I've seen a lot of people ruin a witness, or they get to a place where just something falls apart, and it's just a small thing, you know.
Yeah.
And we live in such a world that they said one time, if you're out in public for 20 minutes, you're on something's recording you, whether it's a drone or a this or that. Yeah. And that, as public as I make my life to be with the reels and the stuff I do and things like that, sometimes I'm just wondering if I should just stop, because everything is public, everything is live these days. Not that I'm trying to hide anything or like that, but
sure,
you know, on your best day, you could make a tragic mistake. I look at some of these reels and these shorts and YouTube or whatever. Someone's having a bad day and someone sticks a camera in their face and they start a fight or whatever, and that person's marked for life, you know. And
sure,
vigilantes are out to get them and cause their job to go away and stuff like that. So, guarding yourself, you know, publicly, you know, is, and obviously. We had a situation a couple of months ago where our pastor said something on a podcast, and not that he meant to be that, it just come across as a way that he was judged, you know, so quick, and then obviously the church was judged with it and things like that, you know. It's things like that kind of scare me, you know, and I don't know, you can't turn this off once you start it.
Yeah, and that type of stuff don't bother me, because nobody's gonna like you all the time.
Right.
It's not, you know. So for me, that's somebody's opinion. That's not a fact.
Right.
You know, it was somebody's opinion that didn't like what was said.
Sure.
You know what I'm saying? But I want to make sure that my character. You know,
right.
It's not that stuff, because you're going to get clipped, you know, especially preaching.
Right.
You're going to say something that maybe it could be clipped and it's not just right, and somebody can take what you're saying out of context. That stuff don't bother me. That's inevitable. It's just it's going to happen.
Because y'all are there. Excuse me. It's like sometimes when I'm listening to preaching, like if someone's preaching at our church and they say something, excuse me, and I'm not so much thinking, but I always think about what's that going to sound like, you know, if someone's watching online.
100%.
You know, so y'all are probably in the heat of the battle when you're ministering.
Sure.
You're really there for the taking if someone really wanted, and you're saying you don't, that doesn't. Obviously, you can't minister with the thought of YouTube on
right. Yeah.
Mind, but still, you know, how do you? Is that ever a situation? I mean, you think about.
You know, I try I mean, even now, I'm working on how I say things and the tone in which I say stuff in. You know, I want to be careful to say what needs to be said, but do it in such a way that we avoid that if at all possible. It's not that I want that. I just feel like at some time it's inevitable.
Yeah.
It's going to happen. I want to prevent that for as long as possible. Put that off for as long as possible. But you know, because you can have the best of motives and the best of intentions, and somebody still take you the wrong way. Of course, I want to avoid that if all possible, but not at the expense of doing what God asked me to do. You know,
it seems like that a lot of times that when somebody's clipped, it's just a small segment, and it really had nothing to do with the overall message.
Sure,
I know some of the. What I would say an "oh me" message, one that's just coming through, and you're really just getting hammered, as you know, as they say, preach to the choir. You're still getting hammered. None of that ever gets talked about,
right?
You know, it's like no one ever clips that and says, "Oh, look what's been said here." But it's just in a blink of an eye when you're preaching on just the love of God, and you say something, just there he is, right there, you know, like that. But it's never the messages that are just what we would say would be hard. No one ever shares that, you know. It's always just that one little old thing. And it's sort of like what happened with pastors, just a little old thing that was not even, you know, the whole rest of the interview was all love and roses and stuff like that. It's just that one little old thing that they just kind of dug out, and I find that being very critical on stuff. So I know y'all have got, as far as the ministers, that's a tough thing because social media is a deal. It is a deal. Everybody's making clips and reels, and no matter what church you're at, they've got a media team.
Oh yeah,
it doesn't matter if it's 10 people or 10,000 people.
They got a media team.
And that's a big deal.
That's a big deal.
So anyway, bro, listen, I love you.
I love you too.
Thank you for coming out.
Oh man, thank you for having me
and spending some time with me. I'm not very interesting, but I feel like that people that I know are doing things, and I just appreciate you, man.
Thank you.
I love you.
I love you too. I appreciate you so much.
Man.